Hello, my name is Jenna Sullins, and I'm going to be doing my final presentation on adolescence development and specifically focusing on the area of teen drinking and its effects. Here I'm going to give an overview of what I'll be doing. First, I will be defining the adolescent stage in the development process, and then I will show the physical, mental, and emotional effects of alcohol, and then I will show the prevention of adolescent alcohol problems and what they stem from, the results of adolescent alcohol abuse, and I will finish with a conclusion. So, the adolescent development period in one's life seems to be, in my opinion, one of the most difficult. You are going to go through personal, emotional, and physical transitions that can have a positive or negative effect on you for the rest of your life. Adolescents go through many issues during this time period, like physical changes, including body image, which comes through puberty, which is, of course, different in boys and girls. And our textbook defines it as the period following the onset of puberty during which a young person develops from a child into an adult. It is typically the age of 11 through 19. I am personally going to focus on the storm and stress aspect, which our textbook defines as intense moodiness, emotional sensitivity, and risk taking tendencies that characterize the life stages of adolescence. The risk-taking tendency I'm going to focus on is alcohol abuse during teenage years. So let's start with the physical extremities of alcohol abuse. According to the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism Online and the Sandra Brown's article, emerging findings from developmentally focused research indicates minor but pretty important neurocognitive disadvantages among adolescents with alcohol use disorders when compared to teens without alcohol use disorders. They tested a 15-year-old frequent alcohol user's brain compared to a 15-year-old who doesn't use alcohol by giving them memory tests which require a high level of attention. In this photo, the light pink in the picture shows the brain activity while taking the test, and clearly the alcohol user shows a 10% decrement in delayed memory functions compared to the non-alcohol user when given the same test. Neuropsychological testing was done of alcohol use disordered youth at 4 and 8 years after using and shows that heavy drinking during adolescence is associated with diminished retrieval of verbal and nonverbal material. Brain imaging after 10 years of alcohol abuse shows reduced hippocampal volumes and brain response abnormalities while performing challenging cognitive tasks. They also show each guy an alcohol advertisement, and on the 15-year-old that drank, he had enhanced brain response while viewing the alcohol advertisements, and the 15-year-old non-drinker didn't. So, according to the NIAAA, the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, although the magnitude of alcohol-related effects observed in adolescents' neurocognition is relatively modest, the consequences are major given the prevalence of alcohol involvement and the important educational, occupational, and social transitions that do occur during this stage of adolescence. The region of the brain that mainly becomes affected is the prefrontal cortex, which is the region of the outer layer of the brain. This area is involved in voluntary motor behavior, impulse control, rule learning, spatial learning, planning, and most importantly, decision making. So, although the number of neurons and neuronal connections in the prefrontal cortex appear to decline during adolescence, the relative importance of the frontal lobe increases. This is why the drinking age is 21, as stated in our textbook, because this is when the prefrontal cortex is fully developed in most people. So, in my opinion, the physical implications that come from alcohol are very important, but the emotional side of substance abuse can be more detrimental to growth and development. In the article by David Hawkins, Risk and Protective Factors for Alcohol and Other Drug Problems in Adolescence and Early Adulthood, he states that the most promising route to effective strategies for the prevention of adolescent alcohol and other drug problems is through a risk-focused approach. He states that this approach requires identifying risk factors for alcohol abuse and also identifying methods for prevention. Of course, So, of course, there are many risk factors preceding alcohol abuse, but the author, David Hawking, splits these into two sections: A, laws and norms favorable to alcohol use, and B, social influences to use alcohol and other substances to desensitize. So, knowing about these risk factors, of course, don't give a formula for prevention, but it does point out definite targets for preventative intervention. Here are 10 risk factors. 1 through 4 will be the main risk factors in broad social context, and 5 through 10 will be individual and interpersonal factors. Number 1 is the laws and norms favorable toward behavior, which are the laws of the city and of the state and the drinking age and what's acceptable and what's not. Number 2 is the availability, which is the availability of alcohol, which is dependent in parts on the law and norms of society, but is definitely a separable factor. Whether or not particular substances are legal, their availability may vary and is associated with use. This is if you have a fake ID or if you have older siblings or parents that are willing to give it to you. Number 3 is the extreme economic deprivation. These are indicators of socioeconomic disadvantage such as poverty, overcrowding, and poor housing, which have been shown to be associated with an increased risk of childhood conduct problems and delinquency. Number 4 is neighborhood disorganization. These are neighborhoods with high population density, lack of natural surveillance of public places, physical deterioration, high rates of adult crime, and illegal drug trafficking, which have to do with the problems and delinquency. 5 through 10 will be the individual and interpersonal factors. Number 5 is the psychological factors. These are things that the adolescence is dealing with daily, like image problems and feeling non-accepted, and things that lead to drinking. Number 6 is the family alcohol and drug behavior and attitudes. If families feel a certain way about alcohol, they're going to let it be known, and depending if it's positive or negative will definitely have effect on if the child will end up drinking or not. Number 7 is poor and inconsistent family management practices, which are things like if you're involved in sports, extracurricular activities, things like that. Number 8 is family conflict, which is if your parents fight a lot, if your family argues constantly, the divorce rates, things like that. Number 9 is low bonding to family, if you don't do things as a group together, positive things, of course. Number 10 is early and persistent problem behaviors. If you show signs when you're younger, this often leads to alcohol indulgence as a teen. So we're all wondering, how can we provide prevention efforts to educate these students on the harmful effects alcohol has on their growing bodies? According to our textbook, when an adolescence is developing, alcohol abuse undermines motivation, interferes with cognitive processes, contributes to mood disorders, and greatly increases risk of accidental injury or death. When looking at a broader spectrum, substance abuse brings a higher cost in healthcare, educational failure, mental health services, drug and alcohol treatment, and juvenile crime. Thomas Gullotta stated in his book Substance Misuse in Adolescence that if all of these factors contribute to alcohol usage, then why don't we all work on the three main things, which are family, school, and community? We could equalize structure and guide, model and teach, be connected and stay involved, and as teachers, support and encourage positive behavior. Doing these things successfully, teens will be less likely to indulge in alcohol. In Hawkins' article, he stated the delinquency and substance abuse prevention efforts have been grounded in the social development model as stated previously. Integrating the control theory and social learning theory, we can definitely emphasize the role of bonding to our family, school, and positive peers as a protection against the development of conduct problems, social misbehavior, substance abuse, and truancy. Also, identification of family and external support and value systems are wonderful protective factors against exposure to stress in childhood, which can eventually lead to alcohol abuse. So in conclusion, there's not one positive factor that we can directly go to and say, this is the main cause of alcohol abuse in adolescence. All we know is the recipe of ethanol poison and alcohol mixed with the growing adolescent brain and emotions causes for decline in brain and social growth and development. To help with regressing this trend of abusing alcohol, we must put forth prevention efforts to do our part in educating the upcoming generations to show them that abusing alcohol at a young age comes with consequences internally and externally, and drinking underage is definitely not all it's cracked up to be. These are my references. I hope you all enjoyed my presentation. Thank you.